So good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to start the meeting. Can I welcome you all to this meeting of the King's Barton Forum? This meeting is being held under the regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April 2020 in response to the COVID-19 situation. My name is Councillor Anne Weir. I'm the Vice Chair of the Forum. There are a few housekeeping reminders to run through as there are new working practices in response to the regulations. First of all, please can I ask everyone present in the virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and that your camera is turned off while you're not addressing the meeting. This will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. Can I also advise that the meeting is being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website. In addition, a video recording of the meeting will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Members and officers, where appropriate, for each item, please use the chat function of the meeting to indicate that you wish to speak or to raise a point of order or explanation, and I'll invite you then to speak at the appropriate time. Each member will be invited to speak in turn. Therefore, I would encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. I understand some forum members may not be able to use the chat function, so I would ask you to use the raise a hand button if you can't get through to me on the chat function. When speaking and referring to the agenda papers, please make sure you reference the page or paragraph number. Thank you. The duration of this virtual meeting is planned for 2 hours. If members wish to leave the meeting at any point, could they please make themselves known to me through the chat function? I'll announce to the meeting that you're to leave. Can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to undertake a roll call of members to confirm who is present this evening?
Thank you, Councillor Weir. Good evening, members. I'll do a roll call of forum members. If you wouldn't mind unmuting your microphone and turning your camera on just to confirm attendance. I'll start with the Winchester City Council councillors. Councillor Godfrey.
I am present.
Councillor Horrell.
Yes, good evening. I'm present.
Councillor Lerney.
Good evening, I'm present.
Councillor Porter.
Good evening, I'm present.
Councillor Prince.
Hello, I'm present.
I've received apologies from Councillor Rutter. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, good evening, I'm present, thanks.
And Councillor Weir.
Yes, Matthew, I'm present. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to the Hampshire County Councillors, Councillor Warwick.
Yes, good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
And Councillor Todd. Not seen Councillor Todd join just yet, Councillor Weir. I'll move on. Moving on to Headbourne Worthy, Councillor Iredale.
Good evening, Matthew. I'm present.
Thank you. And finally, Chair, I had apologies from Councillor Burgess at Littleton and Harestock Parish Council. So that's all members of the forum present, Chair, with apologies from Councillor Rutter, Councillor Burgess, and we'll make some inquiries as to Councillor Todd. Do you want me to carry on and just advise members of the officers present, Chair?
That would be a good idea. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. So we have on the call this evening Julie Pinnock, Chris Hughes, myself and David Blakemore from Democratic Services. With a number of external guests as well. We have, I think, joined us Viv Hill from Carla, Nicola Wells from Barton Farm Academy, Katerina Zucker and Mike Slynn from the Residents Association, and we've also been joined by two members of the public, Carol Manning and Chris Porter. I think that's everybody. Councillor William will make some inquiries to Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so if we've taken the apologies. So if I move on to item 2, disclosures of interests, if I can just kick off here, I will declare a personal but non-prejudicial interest as a trustee of the University of Winchester Academy Trust. Matters relating to Barton Farm Primary Academy may be discussed this evening. Thank you. Do I have any other declarations of interest? Councillor Paul.
Okay. Thank you. Can I declare a personal interest because I'm also a county councillor? Matters will, again, like you, maybe discussed this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised at the moment. I did notice that I think we have another councillor who's joined us, Matthew.
I think I saw Councillor Cunningham appear on the screen.
Yes, briefly. Okay, thank you very much. If that's all the declarations of interest, then I'll move on. I don't have any announcements to make this evening from the chair. So we'll move on to item 4, which is are the minutes of the last meeting held on the 19th of January 2021. That's pages 7 to 10 in your report pack. Can I note that these minutes be signed as a correct record of that meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move on to item 5, which is public participation. My records show I've got 4 members present this evening who've indicated they wish to speak in the public speaking session. I have Carol Manning, Chris Poulter, Mike Slynn and Katerina Zuka. I'll take you in that order, unless you indicate that you'd rather speak directly to one of the papers later on. So can I ask Carol Manning if she'd like to speak? You've got 3 minutes, Carol, and we may or may come back with questions or pick up the points you raised later in the meeting.
Oh, hi. I wasn't actually prepared to be talking for 3 minutes, but I'll be very quick. I sent a letter to Chris Hughes and can't remember his name, Ian, somebody at Carla, about a sewage problem, a sewage drainage problem that seems to be at Kings Barton in phase 1A at the moment, and it happens to be very near my house in the main road. Are people aware of that, or do I need to explain more? Do I need to explain the whole thing?
Okay, I think we are aware of the problem. I might just quickly ask Chris Hughes whether he wishes to address this now or whether we'll take it later. Chris.
It's probably worth addressing now, and I might get Viv Hill if he's got a further answer as well. So following your letter to Ian Corrie, there was a CCTV coverage, CCTV monitoring carried out. I'm afraid I don't know the outcome of that, so I don't, unless Viv has any further information at the moment. I might need to get back to you in the meeting about what the outcome has been.
Hi, Chris. Thanks very much, Chair. If I could just jump in there as well. Yes, I caught up with our technical team this afternoon on this matter. We're very much aware of the sewage issue on site. As Chris said, we've undertaken some CCTV survey of that. That's been inconclusive at the moment. We don't think the problem is a site problem. We think it might be relating to the sewage treatment further down the line, but we will continue investigating. As soon as we found out what the issue is, we'll report back through Chris to the Residents Association and members. So an ongoing investigation, and we'll get to the bottom of it as quick as we possibly can. That's the only update I can give at the moment, I'm afraid, on that matter.
Could I say something along those lines? I happen to be working at home like most people are when the people were outside investigating the drains, so I popped out to chat to them, and I've been aware of this problem for the last 3 years, and I have complained about it on a number of occasions, and I've taken I've written down lots of information, taken lots of photos. Anyway, the guys from CAM said to me that they weren't going to CCTV the area, that they in fact think the root of the problem is probably the pump over the other side in phase 1B, or phase 1A is what you call it, isn't it, the later phase, because the reason that the smell is intermittent, which is what I've reported, and I've said it's at very strange times of the day, is that it happens when the pump decides to release all the sewage from phase 1B down to the treatment centre at the other side of our phase. So it comes down the middle of Winchester Avenue, which is why every now and again you get a very foul stench of sewage emanating from this drain, specifically outside my house, because it's a junction with Winchester Avenue and the other drains that lead into it. Now, obviously, I'm not a specialist in drainage or sewage, but when they spoke to me about this, I said that sounds incredibly viable. And they told me they were going to say that they shouldn't actually CCTV. They didn't think it was necessary because they opened the lid and they showed me there's absolutely nothing down there. There's no blockage. It's running freely. It's just that these drain caps that you have in the middle of the road that Carla have installed are not sealed units. So when the sewage flows by, it's such a huge amounts of sewage flow by, the smell comes out of them. So if you also look at the letter that I wrote, they had a quick fix for the one that was really close to Chislands Drive, and they put a bit of black plastic underneath the lid to stop the smell coming out, which I've said is not really a permanent fix. So I was under the impression that they were going to go back to whoever it is at Carla and say, this is what we think is the cause of it, this is what we think you need to do, and then that would come back to us in writing, because as far as I was concerned, it sounded like they need to put in sealed units on the top of the drains to stop the smell coming out, because it's just going to keep happening every time they empty the pump system in phase 1A.
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
it may not be right, but that's what I may know more than you've been reported back to so far.
Very, very helpful intelligence there. Thank you very much. Like I said, Ian would have been on the call today and might have been able to field a couple more of the detailed questions. Unfortunately, he can't make this evening's meeting, so I will chat to him first thing in the morning, and we'll find out if we can take this a little bit further. So that seems to be perhaps a slight conflict of information I've been given that perhaps you've been given chatting to the guys on site. So we'll follow that up and we'll come straight back to you. I mean, in the principles of the drainage, that the pump should only pump it to the ridge line, and then from then on downwards it's gravity fed. So there's no pumping of sewage through 1B itself. But we'll follow this all up and we'll get to the bottom of it and find out what's going on.
Brilliant. Okay.
And thank you for your help.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. If you could turn your camera off now, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Okay, I realise that I should perhaps have turned to Mike Slynn and Katerina Zucker first as representatives of the Residents Association. Mike and Katerina, I don't know which order you wish to go in, but please switch on, fire away.
Good evening, Chair. Yes, thank you. I'm happy either way. I know that the section for Kings Barton comes just after the public participation. So if there are, for Kings Barton Residents Association comes just after. So I don't know if there are any other members of the public who want to speak.
Please continue, Katerina.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this forum. As always, that's very kind. We didn't submit this time our new set of questions, which we usually do to get the responses at this forum. We were actually waiting to see what progress CALA would be able to make in the 2 months since the last meeting, and so we wanted to wait until the very last day to see what boxes we could tick off our long list. But yeah, firstly, I'd like to thank Viv and the CALA team for finally opening the play park. That has been a great joy for everyone in phase 1B, and I'm sure some children might come up from phase 1A as well. They've already started using it, and I think the parish council is sorting out some signage for COVID restrictions, disclaimers, and no dogs allowed, or some play park rules, which we think should be visible. But I also want to point out that bring to this forum that recently we've received quite a few messages, spontaneous messages from residents who expressed their disappointment at the effectively lack of care that CALA has shown, particularly for the things that need to be finished in phase 1B. So this was the north end of the site and the first area that was developed and built. Most of these issues were either already raised by us, and they're all summarized in an Excel file that I think we have circulated to this forum, and Chris Hughes has a copy of that. So it's a sort of working copy of all the issues or all the problems that we find or people raise at some point or another. But I would like to spend a few words on a few of these issues, which I think are urgent and need as quick a solution as possible. So first of all, the most recent one I was made aware of is that the road surface on Bingham Road, which is basically a parallel to the avenue, the road surface presents many holes, and people have complained that that hasn't been done. I'm not aware of when that was raised initially, but I remember that from the last meeting we were told the road surface is something we would like to finalize later, sorry, that CALA would like to finalize later on. But if there are any serious issues with some patches that need to be done, we'd be happy to sort them out quickly. So I don't think we need a response right now in terms of timing, but I would think that this is one of those urgent repairs that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. I would have brought up the issue of sewage smells, but Carol luckily was here, so and I know that you're already aware of this problem. This was also, it has been present for a while, but it has been escalated recently. So hopefully this has now brought it up on the urgent works list. However, we still have some unresolved issues that are from quite a while ago, I must say. So together with the play park opening, we were told we were told sometime in mid-2019 that street furniture such as benches around the site, as well as dog bins and litter bins, would be installed at the same time as the opening of the play park. Now, I understand that that might be not exactly on the same day. However, it's now been a few days that the park has been opened and there's no sign of these, and it's really necessary now that CALA not only says that they will do it, imminently is not going to be enough. I think we should really request a timeline, a precise timeline for that, because as I said, it's about 2 years that we've been asking for this. And another unresolved request is, actually we were told that this would be done, is to install some speed limit reminders, not the electronic ones, just signage, for 20 miles per hour at other locations across the site, because at the moment there's only one at the entrance on Manley Road from Andover Road. And so we see speeding on the avenue from delivery drivers to parents going to the school, but also locals, evidently. So we think that a reminder would be good. And I can't remember exactly when, but I think back just over a year ago, actually, sorry, we had presented a request to install signs that actually Carol Manning very kindly designed for us to illustrate to people on site. Sorry, this is the ice cream van coming around every evening. It's not anything else. Sorry, we'd like the shared spaces to be clearly marked as shared areas, because some people might not know how to use them. And so the idea is that the speed limit should be 10 miles per hour, and with a couple of images of a car, a bike, and pedestrians. This is a very easily easy to visualize sign to remind people that this is not a road where you can speed. If your child is playing on the road, please be mindful that you're not the only user of it. And back in January 2020, we were told that these would be installed quite quickly. In fact, there were already on order about 12 A3 size aluminium signs with this design. And actually just recently, Carla's response by email, this not at the forum, has been that all this signage would detract and would take away the rural feel of this area. But actually, this is going to be an urban area. So we feel that safety should come first, and we don't have any cottages or large estates around here. It's quite densely built up and built in and populated now, and it's just going to increase. So let's teach people as soon as possible what the speed limits are, where the safe areas are, and I think this is something we should address quite promptly, really. And finally, I would like to make a point, or I'm not sure this is a question, but if I'll please be patient, sorry. So we've noticed that there are a few trigger points that Carla has missed in delivering not only works on site, but also, for example, the crossing point on Wellhouse Lane by the railway track. And these, from the literature that I've looked at, these should have been met at 200 occupations, which I believe was reached. They were reached before all of phase 1B had been sold and occupied, because we have 223 houses, dwellings here. So our question is, what happens when Carla doesn't meet these important trigger points? What are the consequences for them? And are there works that we could ask them to bring forward as a repair for the damage or the lack of infrastructure that this delay has caused? And looking at some, I think it was the latest phasing map that was presented at this forum, and that was in Chris Hughes will be able to help me here, but sorry, it was November 2020. No, November 2019, sorry. That was the latest phasing plan. And I could see, I'm not sure if I can, would I be able to share my screen with this forum? I don't know if that's possible at all, but that's a map that is going to be available to everyone. So basically, along Wellhouse Lane, there's a footpath and cycle path that is just truncated at the moment, and that is planned to go along all the way along Wellhouse Lane, up the hill, and to the tree-lined ridge. I'm not sure that this makes much sense as a request, but wouldn't it be nice to have that as an available footpath and cycle path for residents long before the phase 4B, which is where it is planned to happen. So this would be a very good way to say, okay, we're sorry for missing on these trigger points. And I believe phase 1A also has no way, so residents in phase 1A have no direct connection to the footpath to the nature reserve at the moment. Although that's an area that is going to remain field, or there might be some planting that it needs to be done, but there are not going to be big buildings or big infrastructures there. So if Carla could find a way to connect these two areas better, just for a walk or a cycle with a family, that would be great. and that could be considered as part of the missed trigger points, which they will have to deliver anyway, but to make up for what has been missed. That is just a suggestion. And sorry, on this subject, actually, I have a question as to why phase 1A, in fact, the green area in phase 1A that should reach all the way to Wellhouse Farm, Wellhouse Cottage. There's going to be a little development of six cottages, I believe, along Wellhouse Lane in a separate property from King's Barton. And this footpath that runs along Wellhouse Lane is now truncated at a point, at a location, which is inside the phase 1B area. It doesn't extend all the way to the actual extent of where the phase 1B should end. And so I'm wondering why that has been missed as well. And I think that is all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katerina. I've taken some detailed notes on that.
Thank you.
I think I might suggest we pick these up when we get to item 8, if that's all right with you.
Of course, yes.
But I'm interested you raised that truncated footpath. I've been down and had a look at it quite recently, and it is quite frustrating.
I had never realised that was actually missing, a missing bit, and a missing appendix really from phase 1B. And yeah, I'd like some responses on that. It's not a major thing. Of course, we have bigger issues, but there are some things we could just, we can't believe we're still asking for them. Honestly. Okay.
Thank you. I'll pick this up. Chris and Viv will look at them in more detail a little later on. Mike, was there anything else you wanted to add on this?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks to Katerina. Just to add that I sent a list of issues that are relatively recent on 1A, the development nearest the city centre, that section of the development nearest the city centre. I sent that to Chris Hughes, and I'm hoping that by now we will have had a response from Carla Holmes. So if that could also be included, Chair.
Yeah, I'm sure Chris is primed to come back with some responses on that. If that's it, if you would.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry I'm going to have to go early. Apologies.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind turning your camera off, Mike, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Chris, I briefly saw you there. Did you want to come in now, or shall we?
I was, again, hoping Viv might have an answer to that one at the moment. As an update from Ian, he may not do, but he is aware of the questions that have come up. Just to cover that one off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to them in a little while. Oh, Viv, did you want to respond on some of these now?
I'm happy to respond a little bit later. That might be easier, Chair. But just a quick response. And I have seen the additional questions that Mike sent over to Ian Curry. I'll see if I can get a response on some of those points this evening. However, I think it may take a little bit more time to fully respond to each of the points in turn. That there were, I think, sort of half a dozen or 8 points there which we needed to come back on. But I will just revisit those now, and then maybe we can give a verbal update later on this evening as part of our agenda item. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So, Chris Coulter, I think I'm sorry to leave you last, but do come in now, Chris, and over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chair. Really, I mean, that there are so many big issues that are being discussed tonight that this is a relatively minor one, I think. But I just wanted to talk about the new cycle track across Barton Meadows. Firstly, the points I raised last time about the junction of this track with Courtney Road are being taken forward. And so my thanks go to Mr. Hughes from the City Council for that, and also to Councillors Porter and Todd for their support. I've got 3 broad outstanding points that stem broadly from my concerns about the lack of clarity of the design and build standards. These are based on what we can see of this cycle track as it crosses the meadows, but by extension, these same concerns apply potentially to the rest of the Kings Barton scheme. So I think they're worth raising here. My concern really is that this track is potentially substandard and therefore isn't going to last as a safe way, a safe sort of shared use track, particularly at a time where we want to really promote sustainable foot and pedal transport around the city. And sort of some of the instances that I raised before around the timber edging that's been put to this tarmac track is breaking up, the topsoil banking that's been applied is falling away, and there are already places where the tarmac surface is starting to break up and fall away, where vehicles and feet have gone over it. So the 3 points that I wanted to raise, fairly straightforward. I think that the City Council, so Mr. Hughes, if he could set out clearly to this forum, either today or another time, which design and build standards Carla have been instructed to follow for this cycle scheme. With councillors Portia and Todd, we've identified things like LTN 120, the local travel notice, Hampshire's own technical standards, and the relevant British standards, which are, sort of one would expect to be sort of reasonable standards to be set and to be given to Carla to follow. The second point then is that I'd like the City Council again to make clear how they'll assess whether what has been built by Carla's contractors meets those appropriate standards. And I've suggested sign off by a suitably qualified and experienced civil engineer or equivalent would be a sort of an appropriate step to take to show that what we've been given meets those standards. And then the final point is just if it does turn out that design or build are below normal standards, either because the City Council didn't specify them or perhaps because Carla's contractor didn't deliver, then this should be brought back to this forum, either to seek our sort of agreement to a derogation from the normal standards or to agree the proposals for putting things right. So those are the 3 points, and so it's sort of putting it back open really to Chris Hughes. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Again, I've taken some comprehensive notes, and we'll perhaps come back in the implementation update in the course of the meeting. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, I just want to let you know Councillor Todd has joined the meeting, as has Councillor Therese Evans as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. So that was the members of the public I had on my speaking list this evening. Do we have any visiting councillors who wish to speak this evening, or are we all members of the committee? I think it's probably we're members of the committee. So in that instance, as agreed with Chris, we'll come back to the points raised by Councillor Iredale. Do you wish to say something at this point?
I do, please. Yeah, just a couple of words, if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. My sentiment, I share the sentiments with the residents and the Residents Association, of which I'm the secretary, so I work closely with Katrina and Mike. So yeah, there's unfortunately quite a lot of frustration amongst the residents here. With regards to the play park signage, we're putting that up. As in Hebburn Worthy Parish Council, we're putting that up on Thursday into the new play park. It's great to see it open, so thank you very much for making that happen. Made a lot of children happy. I just wanted to touch base on the antisocial behaviour. We were hoping Vivid were going to come along and speak to the forum. They will be doing it at a later date, but we have had some isolated incidents of antisocial behaviour. These have been dealt with by Vivid, tenancy enforcement and the police and various other parties. Chris Hughes and I continue to work with Vivid and neighbourhood services at City Council and the police, the parties. We are meeting to do a site visit with the new beat officer, a police officer for our neighbourhood and with Vivid, and we're also setting up a forum, or in the process of setting up a forum where we will meet regularly with so this will be Chris, myself representing the parish council, a member of the Residents Association, the police, and any other interested parties, depending on what the subject is. So we'll be doing some working groups as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I was disappointed that we are not going to be getting a polling station in Kings Barton in time for the this year's vote. Our nearest polling station is Jubilee Hall on London Road. It's not easily accessible for those voters in this area that don't have access to a car. Not everyone who lives here has access to a car, unfortunately, and we don't also have a post box. So you know, that there is obviously a worry that there may be some voter apathy as a result of this, because voting isn't going to be easy this year. Obviously, because of COVID, we're unable to use the school. But hopefully, in time we will have. So you know, a polling station, a temporary one, would have really been helpful this year. It would take 2 bus routes to get to the polling station that we currently use, and it's, you know, it really isn't ideal. So I just really wanted to express that we're not very happy about that. And talking of buses, there really isn't an ideal bus route at the moment either. There are people that live here, as I've said, that don't have vehicles, and some of these people don't have or have mobility issues, or they have young children and they're trying to get to school and back, or to do the drop off or nursery drop off, or to their GPs, and they're having to spend money on taxis to get there and back, or they're very reliant on lifts, which lift sharing in a pandemic isn't that great. So I wanted to express that on behalf of some residents as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much for raising those points. I think we're really encouraging to hear that you're getting together with the new beat officer. That sounds like a very positive move.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know, pleased to hear that the work around the play area is moving forward. Although, you know, I pick up the points that Katerina raised earlier generally around signage. I know fellow councillors have been raising their concerns about the polling station situation, and I think, you know, we do need to look and perhaps make recommendations to residents as to what the best solution to that is under the circumstances, and particularly for people who can't access it easily. Yes, I acknowledge and thank you for your comments now. If you've got anything else, do come back in later on when we get into the business of the meeting.
I will do. Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
You're welcome. So, just moving on, the next item on the agenda, as Councillor Idale alluded to, was due to be an update from Vivid on some of the issues relating to their housing. Rather late in the day, we learned that they would not be able to provide somebody to attend this evening for more than 15 minutes. As we didn't feel that would do justice to the subject this evening, we're going back to Vivid to ensure that they can bring forward an officer or management representative for a future meeting who can provide the time to engage properly with the forum. So we're disappointed that they're not here this evening, but we will be bringing this item back to a future meeting. So I'll move on now to item 7, which is pages 11 to 24 on the pack, on the S106 triggers. I think we're getting an update on there. Is that Chris going to lead on this one, Matthew?
So, sorry, Chair, just before we move on, I think Councillor Porter wanted to say something on that previous statement.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see that hand.
No, sorry, I'm trying to get to RTS and it just won't go faster. I'm just going to say that I think it would be valuable as well, because the home group are also managing the affordable homes in phase 1A, and I think we should perhaps programme in the future some work with them as well. They will be a second provider on that site, and I think it's important that both of them have the opportunity to respond to comments, but also to come and make a presentation to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. I'm hoping then we could make a note on that, you know, early on we book in with Vivid and the Home Group to ensure that they are represented at these meetings, so we can spend a reasonable amount of time on the matters arising around their housing. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 7, the S106 triggers, which was one of the points raised by Katerina. Chris, do you want to introduce this item, and then we might address Katerina's questions around this?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, can I just echo my disappointment with Vivid for not coming to the meeting? They did have it in their diaries for 6 weeks, and it's disappointing they couldn't manage to send any representative. So on to section 106. Thank you, Councillor Horrell, for your suggestion at the last meeting for the traffic light system. I hope it's a bit clearer now, although I see I didn't put orange as kind of a pink colour that's come out, so that's my mistake at my end, rather than it being an amber. I know there are some questions on this that people have, so rather than going through it line by line, because nothing has actually changed since the last meeting other than the colours, I'll just perhaps cover Katerina's points about what section 106, what we can actually do in terms of a developer not meeting their requirements. In short, we could stop them building. It's a legal document, and we can go to court and get an injunction against Cala to stop building it. It's not an approach on a development like this that we would want to take. We are certain that Cala will construct everything that they need to. It is disappointing that some of the things haven't been done on time, but they are now in progress, and they are with the Hampshire Highways Department to get approval. I'm talking about the Wellhouse Lane section now, and when that is approved, then works will commence as soon as possible. And Viv may wish to give an update exactly on what the path will look like, but my understanding is that the path from the Wellhouse Lane connecting to the ridge line will be installed at the same time as the works at the bridge are going on.
Did you want to add anything at this point?
Just very, very briefly, I think that's correct, Chris. Yes, I mean there's two issues really with the footpath from the bridge at Wellhouse Lane up to the public right of way. The first one, we are able to control ourselves as Cala, in that we can construct the footpath from the public right of way down to essentially our ownership adjacent to Wellhouse Lane. That's something that we don't need any approval for. We can get on and do that ourselves. Clearly, the works through the bridge themselves involve Network Rail, they involve Hampshire County Council highways, so it takes a little bit longer to get those works approved. But they, as Chris said, they've all been submitted, seeking technical approval of that design. Once that is issued, we can then get on with the work. So yes, we are. I think the trigger for that was the opening of the school. I think we always recognise that we're behind that, but actually at the time, the current thinking at the time was that those pupils attending the school wouldn't be using the link because they were intended to come from within the site itself, and obviously that has changed now, and it's something that we're well aware of, so we'll get on and await that technical approval before installing that footpath to the public right of way. I think it'd be worth just linking that to the question, I think, from Katerina about the footpath, which is truncated at the northern end around the attenuation basin at the northern end of phase 1B. Mm-hmm. It would make complete sense to me to put in that path and continue it along the northern edge of Wellhouse Lane up to the railway bridge. So there is a route on that northern edge of the site. I think probably the red line as it was drawn at the time was there to facilitate the attenuation basin in terms of where the land take required to get the attenuation basin working in that location, which is why the footpath, I think, was just left truncated in that position with a view that the wider connectivity could be gained elsewhere. But I think that's a takeaway for Cala. It's not something that's been asked for before, but I think it's a valid one, and that we can look at providing that northern connection and ultimately have a wider connectivity across the site. So happy to take that away. I know there are other points that Katrina would like some answers to, whether now's the time to continue going through those or a little bit later on in the forum. I don't know, Chair, your suggestion.
Thank you, Viv. I think if we focus on the trigger points at the moment, we'll come back to those other points when we get to the items on the agenda, if that's all right.
Certainly, that makes sense to me.
Okay, Chris, were there any other points you wanted to make around the... I have one question. One councillor wants to follow up questions if you've run out of things to say.
No, I may, Councillor, I may cover Mr. Poulter's points at the moment. The cycle path from Courtney Road into the site is a Section 106 obligation. There's no requirement within that obligation to build it to any standards. It was signed in 2012, so obviously the thinking would have been different then. But there was no requirement beyond the approval of the City Council for that route to be constructed to any particular standard. It's been constructed in that way with the wooden sides because it's a very difficult area to dig in. The trees along that avenue are very sensitive, and therefore you can't actually dig into that area because it would be likely that putting in full foundations, as you would normally do for a path, and curb lines would truncate the roots and possibly kill the trees, and if not destabilise them. So I think that probably answers some of the queries. I suspect Mr. Poulter won't be particularly happy with that answer, but the situation is that the planning consent does not require Cala to build it to X specification. So it's been built to specification that the City Council have agreed.
Okay, thank you on that point. All right, I have a question from Councillor Porter on this item 7 on trigger points. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And I'd like to talk about 3 things. One, the Wellhouse Lane junction. The second one is the community development work, and the third one is the transport access funds, if I could. So the first one on Wellhouse Lane, I have also been speaking, because obviously my name's at the top of this paper, so I want to make sure that I understand. So I've been speaking to the county council officer about this, who has said to me that technical comments have been returned from Hampshire County Council, and that Network Rail is more difficult. And actually we've put her in touch with a slightly different set of people, but she said they are being actually easier to contact since the terrible accident in September. So I wondered if Viv would like to comment on what further amendments he has to make to the design in order to get them to a point where everybody's happy to accept them. And she informed me as well that the route to the ridge was being amended. It was previously a zigzag path, but actually we've learned recently, and I think it's come up frequently, is that a very zigzag path makes it impossible to use a bike where you're trailing another child, or where you're using a bike that's perhaps a 3-wheeler. And so the route to the ridge, I gather, is being improved, and perhaps you'd like to talk about that. The second thing is the question is about the community development worker, who officially should have somewhere to be from the I haven't got that page on my page, but should have somewhere to be, and would have been based at the school. And is that still going to happen, or is that not, or do we need to sort out some alternative accommodation? And then the third matter is the transport access funds, which should have been in place at this point. And if Chris or Viv would like to comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Chris, would you like to indicate whether this is for you or for Viv?
Bit of both, Chair. So the community development worker, there is space for me at Cala's offices, and as and when we're actually allowed to see people in real life, I will certainly be taking that up. I hope Nicola will be willing to have me there as well, so I can access the northern end. But to be honest, we haven't spoken about it recently. I think she's probably got more important things to be dealing with at the moment. So as and when we've all had the jab and we can actually talk to people, I'll liaise with Nicola again. I'd very much like to be engaged with the school. I think it'd be an important part of my role. The third point was about the transport triggers. Is that correct? Sorry,
yes.
my connection
Yes,
broke up slightly. So the transport connection, sorry, the transport agreement triggers are all underway for a part of a deed of variation. They're all set at one trigger point, which as the development has progressed hasn't been realistic because those phases haven't come forward where those elements of the development are located. So the intention is that when the deed of variation is agreed, hopefully in the next couple of months, that those triggers will be located beside the phases rather than being to a house number, because the house number in this instance is slightly arbitrary, given that the phasing has changed at least twice on the development over the last 10 years. So we will connect them to the phases that they are related to at the moment, and so that they will be built and the technical approval will be got for those as and when those phases come forward. Does that make sense?
It does, but there were some very important parts of that S106 that tied up with the car club, with travel boards.
So yes, sorry, that's a slightly different. Those, yeah, the travel plan things, I think Calla will acknowledge, have not been delivered on time. In fact, they're significantly late now. I know that when the new management came in to manage in Calla, manage Kings Barton, it became a kind of a #1 priority to get it done. The travel plan coordinator is now, the travel plan consultant is now in place, and they are working with Hampshire's travel plan coordinators to make sure that everything is correct and they can actually go ahead and get everything that they're meant to do done. The car club, again, as soon as it is possible to do it, it will happen. Initially, COVID was slowing that down, but I think there might have been a solution found to that, that Calla will be trying to get on the ground as soon as possible. It hasn't been done, and I think Calla will hold the hands up, but it is being done now. And hopefully in the near future, all the things that were meant to be done will be fully delivered, and all the Section 106 obligations will be fulfilled. Viv may comment further.
It's something that we've said we've been chasing, but Viv might like to comment.
I think just a couple of things there, Councillor Porter. Thank you for raising those additional points. I'll work backwards as we've just talked about the car club. We're looking at the most suitable location to place the car club. I think from memory, there's when the overall development's complete at 2,000 homes is a requirement for a two-space car club on the site. The immediate trigger is to get one in place. And we're looking at the best position for that, whether that be in phase 1A or 1B. The original intention was that the space would be within the customer service car park at 1A to the south of the site, closer to the city centre. Now, the challenge there is that ultimately the sales car park will at some point, may not be in the near future, return to landscape. It won't be a car park off that roundabout, and we look at options for potentially future-proofing the car club to be potentially suitable for electric vehicles as well. So we don't really want to put in infrastructure for an electric vehicle car club in what is effectively a sacrificial space that will have to be dug up and relocated. So at the moment, we're going through an exercise of looking at the best position for that, either in phase 1A or 1B, that we could future-proof and allow either a car on its own for diesel or petrol, or allow the ability to put in that totem pole for electric vehicle charging. So we'll keep you informed of our decision in terms of that, but it is something we're actioning.
Please let it be an electric one. Please let it be an electric one at this stage of the game.
I would say it's
5 years ago, perhaps not, but definitely now.
Don't disagree at all. It makes complete sense to be electric vehicle here. Hence, it's caused some problems about where the location might be, because it needs to be in a public, accessible place that everyone can get to and everyone can use. So we'll keep. But
also, it says about travel vouchers, community travel website, travel boards, all of those things, which actually phase 1B definitely need, really.
Yes, and the consultant who we've appointed is a consultant called iTransport. They do a lot of travel plan coordination for big developments like King's Barton. So they're looking at putting that all in place, and it's underway. Whether it's shortly to be published, I can check the timescales for that, and we can inform Chris that he can report that back to the wider member team and the public.
It would be helpful to have it before the summer holidays, certainly. Yes,
agreed. You also had a question about the zigzag path in the north.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yes, we're looking at potentially a two-pronged attack on that slope from Warehouse Lane up to the public right of way, avoiding lots of zigzags. Absolutely right. It's not great for buggies or for cyclists. No. It might be good for children with scooters, but not for the wider public. So we're looking at a larger zigzag, which will probably need 2 zigzags to get it from the top to the bottom, but also a more direct stepped approach, so that should people want to go in a straight line from Warehouse Lane up to public right of way, they could have that option as well. So combining a zigzag and a zigzag ramped approach at a sort of 1 in 20 slope, and then a stepped approach, giving you that direct connection there. So it's a fair bit of infrastructure there we're looking at, and we're working up the detailed proposals at the moment.
I appreciate that, but we're really hitting it with the conversations with cyclists, that if you have even a long slope and then a sharp angle, and I myself have fallen off a bike in a situation of turning that sharp corner, it's not an easy one, and we do need to make this a convenient way to walk and cycle along there. You've only got to go over on a fine evening at the moment and see the number of people that are cycling or walking on the path from Abbots Barton across, and it almost doesn't look wide enough at the moment. So
Councillor Porter, I've got 2 more.
Sorry, I just wanted to raise that because I think it's important that we get that design right, particularly if we're pressing to get that work done before September when children go back. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Horrell, you've been waiting very patiently. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, and thank you for the colour-coded report, Chris. In fact, I think Councillor Porter has picked up on some of the issues that I wanted to raise, which came from your report regarding the travel aspects that you've just been discussing, the car club, etc. And I think just a feeling that I'm getting from the residents, that obviously there is considerable concern that their life is full and normal and they're in situ, but some of the elements that they were expecting to be provided around them in their new home, in their new community, are not catching up as quickly as they should be. So we have elements on this report that sort of say underway, but here we are 3, 4, 5 months on, and they're still not done. So I feel the frustration, and just wondered if there's more that we should be doing to ensure that we catch up on some of these things that are due to support the residents who are looking to live a normal life and access some of these facilities that obviously are planned for the overall development. And as we know, developments like this are not just about the homes, they're about the overall community that we generate for our residents. So just wanted to raise that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. And I suppose that does also open up the question, maybe for Viv, that Katerina raised about what can be done about access from phase 1A to the nature reserve. Is there any timetable on which we can expect residents at phase 1A to be able to directly access the reserve rather than having to go right round the block, as it were, to get back to the reserve?
Yeah, I mean, there's the connectivity on this site is something I've been pretty close to, and hopefully Chris would vouch for that. It's not easy. It's a construction site at phase 1A we've got to work around, but ultimately we're looking at a number of options and actually a phased approach to how we can get connectivity working on this site. The current route from Warehouse Lane, sorry, the current route from wait for my car alarm in the distance to turn itself off. So we've got a number of issues here. The route from the nature reserve beneath the railway bridge, and the current route to the public right of way is obviously there at the present. Once we've finished construction of the homes to the south of Winterbourne Meadows, the south of that public open space that sort of runs diagonally from Stony Lane towards the railway bridge, then there'll be a route then from the public from phase 1A to the nature reserve. Construction activity will always continue to the north, and we've now obviously got the consent for phase 2A, reserve matter consent, early this year. So to a degree, there will always be some construction activity around 2A and future 3A as a phase. Now, what we're looking to do is that the north, there's a public footpath, or the route from the public right of way, which heads south down towards phase 1A. Now we're looking to reroute that and effectively move that slightly further east, so that there's a route from phase 1B, the public right of way, heading south, past through the phase 1A infrastructure, around the attenuation basin out towards the nature reserve. Probably not easily described on the forum like this, and it may be that we can prepare and share some plans at the next forum showing, I suppose, the phased approach to connectivity in it, and that's an offer that I think I'm happy to put forward. That I think it'll be very clear then what we're proposing and where the routes are and at what point in time they'll be implemented. Happy to cover some of the other points from Katrina at the same time while I'm on. Yeah. And some of them are linked. There are some questions about the road surface, and thank you very much for bringing it to our attention that there might be some on Bingham Road. Looking at my notes here, I think it suggested there were some deep potholes which need immediate action, so I can take that away and make the team on site aware that this is a concern. I think there's no point dwelling on, I suppose, the wider technical approval of the road and the final surface finish which needs to go on there. I think we've all covered that in previous forums and where we are in terms of the technical approval with Hampshire County Council going forward. I was a little surprised to hear that the street furniture hadn't gone in yet. This was something I thought was in place. Again, so I need to follow that up with our team and our commercial team to find out why that street furniture hasn't been installed on site. In terms of the speed limit reminders and shared surface signs, again, I think I committed a year ago to saying that they've been placed and the order was in. So I have caught up with our technical team on that issue this afternoon, and I can confirm that they have been ordered, they have been placed, and I believe, again, that we can put those in shortly. I think there's 7 signs have been ordered, and that they'll be sitting at every junction in phase 1B, at every junction off the main avenue, where the road crosses into the housing development, where they cross those shared surface streets. There'll be a sign either left or right if you were turning it into those shared surface streets. So I think you helpfully reminded that your resident association had come up with a suitable design. I think the takeaway for me is to check that design is the one that we have placed the order for, to make sure it's as you expect. Katrina, you also mentioned the email that had come back saying that the site was too rural and these sites weren't appropriate. I'd be interested to know who from Carla has written that email. It's certainly not my understanding at all, and it's certainly not the case. These signs will be going in. I think it's important that those shared surface streets are used and used safely, and the signage there is important, one, to keep speeds down, but also remind everyone that it is a shared space for pedestrians and cyclists as well as cars. I think hopefully we've covered the question about the footpath by the railway line through some of the wider questions, and the Warehouse Lane link to the public right of way. Just going through my notes, see if there's anything I may have missed. If I haven't, please let me know, and I will cover it off separately.
Katerina, did you just want to?
If I may, yes, I just wanted to thank Viv because yeah, we haven't been exchanging emails directly recently, so he might not have been aware of many of these points. I'll find out where the comment came from and we'll liaise directly with him probably. But yeah, thank you very much. I hope this is all over and we can bring up a whole new set of not issues but requests. Okay.
I think from Carla's perspective, I appreciate it's incredibly frustrating for the residents living on the site, particularly in phase 1B to the north, where it's been fully occupied now for the best part of a year with those sort of 223 dwellings up there. I mean, we've touched on a few of the issues this evening. There are a whole wider set of issues that we're looking at in terms of remedial works in that phase, as well as phase 1A to the south, such as the landscaping, where we've got dead trees, the replacement of those, dead hedges they're looking to replace. So there's a whole, all of the points that you've previously raised, and probably more some, are being discussed on a weekly basis with a sort of a separate team back at Carla in terms of remediation that's required on there. These things unfortunately don't happen overnight, and I sense your frustration on that, but everything is in hand. We are looking at it and we'll do our utmost to get them resolved as quickly as we possibly can. Some we're in control of ourselves, others we're relying on third parties to sort of get those approvals in place, particularly on issues such as the road surface. So let's keep talking. We'll keep doing what we possibly can, and just please accept my apologies in terms of the delays or frustrations felt by residents, but that we're doing everything we possibly can to get these resolved as quick as we can.
Thank you. In fact, since you mentioned that you're going to have a meeting, you're aware of all the other points that we've raised with you. I think directly with Ian Curry, this big Excel file has been circulated around. We have a residents meeting on the 27th of March. So if by that date you could come back to us with summarized timeline of what you intend to do roughly when, that would help us, communicate to our residents and say, yeah, what's going to happen in the near future. And if there are things that need longer, like the layout of Winchester Avenue, we understand that there are some issues that can't be resolved quickly. But yeah, thank you for your cooperation very much.
Thanks, Katerina. It's helpful to know your meeting. So we'll respond by that date. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Katerina. You're welcome. And thank you, Viv. I think I'm working through the list of points that I noted. I think we've have addressed there. I think the key points that Katerina raised and Councillor Porter on that particular one. I still have Councillor Lerney waiting to ask a question. Sorry, it's taken me so long to get to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we've talked quite a lot about the transport and access issues within the site, but I'm sure most people are aware that one of the key concerns of residents in neighbouring areas has always been about the impact on the local transport infrastructure of the development, and we've been promised that the development will be one where people don't have to be reliant on cars. And we've talked around that. But in relation to the topic under discussion, I'd like to raise the issue of the payments that have already been made to the County Council and the ones that are still to come. We've had the payment of the access funds and bus subsidies, and we're also told that rather than Carla undertaking works at the Andover Road, Berwick Road junction, that they're going to make a financial contribution to the county for that. what I really want to know is, when is the county going to get on and make these improvements that people in the surrounding areas desperately want to see? Since the figures for those contributions were set, construction inflation has risen by about 35%. You know, the value of those contributions are steadily going down, and yet none of it's being spent. We're not seeing any improvements. We're not seeing any new bus services. And I really want to know when these improvements are going to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Lerney. Well, we have a slight challenge here, as we don't have a representative from Hampshire Highways, but perhaps Chris, can you help out how we can answer Councillor Lerney on this?
Help out a little bit. There are discussions about various things, and Councillor Porter's been involved with those as well. So one of the things that we're looking to use the Section 106 money for is as a match funding for improving the path into the towards the school, and also Section 106 money will be used for the crossing on Andover Road as and when the viability of that is agreed. But I agree with you. Hampshire County Council acknowledged that they haven't spent any of the money. Indeed, it's not often when Cala could actually ask for it back, but we have been assured that Cala won't do that. They have crossed their hearts and hope to die, or something similar, but they're not going to take that money back. But I agree, and it might be worthwhile me getting someone from the delivery side of Hampshire County Council to make a comment on that for the next forum.
Yeah, if I might follow up on that, Chair. Certainly the understanding was that these contributions were going to be spent outside the red line rather than inside the red line of the development, so directly benefiting surrounding communities. Can we chase that up too? Absolutely.
And to be fair, I think the path into the site will benefit people outside the red line, given the number of pupils that are coming across from Hairstock.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Councillor Lerney. I think that's an issue that we will be coming back to, unless. So I have another point from Councillor Porter.
Thank you. Actually, I think Chris has just mentioned it, which is the path to school. If you'd like to talk about the progress on that, or where we are, that would be helpful.
Yes, sorry, I was just taking a drink. I am working with colleagues from the Countryside Service in Hampshire to identify the specification for the path. It's likely to be a ground stone, compacted stone path rather than anything more formal through that area. It just wouldn't really be a suitable route for the tarmac areas. I'm sure your dog would agree, Councillor Weir. We're hopefully going to use the same specification as the path they're installing to from Winchester to South Wanston, up that way, which isn't perfect, but it's a good surface, and it hopefully will be suitable for that area. I'm hoping that will get some costs for that relatively shortly, and then we can work out the financial implications for it for SIL and for the Section 106.
That's very encouraging, and
all hopefully to be done before the next school year.
Great. Well, I'm sure Nicola will be reassured by that as well. Thank you for that update. Okay, I think I'm not seeing any more hands or questions on this, unless there are any more comments. I think we've given the triggers a fairly good coverage. We'll move on to item 8, the Kings Barton implementation update. Point A on this was a highways update on matters not previously discussed. Chris, do you want to just tell us where we are on this?
Chair, we don't have anyone from highways with us today. I think it's in the fairly short time since the last meeting, not much progress has been made on that side. I'm attending a meeting on Thursday with Cala and the highways team at Hampshire to discuss matters there. So hopefully things will get moving again from that point, and I'll report back to the next forum, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. Well, obviously we in the sort of course of these two meetings, we've had the public consultation on the change of speed limit on the Andover road. While I think we all felt it was welcome to have this consultation, the proposals fell rather short of the mark, moving the 40-mile-an-hour limit 100 metres further up the road really wasn't quite adequate for what we're looking for, given the amount of pedestrian footfall that's going across the road at the moment. So I do hope that they might come back with something a little bit more ambitious, moving the 30-mile-an-hour limit out along the Andover road. But perhaps we can have that discussion next time.
Yeah, I am assured, and it's a slightly strange situation, I am assured that the work that's being done to identify the crossing point and so on will look at speed limits and so on. Yeah. So it does seem slightly silly to be proceeding with this proposal at the moment whilst there's work ongoing, but I can't speak for Hampshire County Council's working practices.
I don't want to put you on the spot there. So if we move on from there to item B, is the implementation update. Will you introduce this report, please, Chris?
I will, Chair, thank you. We've kind of blended quite a few of these things into the Section 106 report, as would be expected. They're both for the same site. So for Phase 1B, it's obviously completed, and Viv has covered lots of the issues that need to be done, and he's spoke to Katrina at length about those. One thing that Katrina mentioned was the new houses at Wellhouse Lane Cottages. So we did consult with Cala to talk about how the connection up there would be, and a connection will be put in. It'll be basically from the back of the development into the Hoggin type path that's going along the northern edge of the path. I think it will be in a later phase, as Katrina said. It wasn't necessarily anticipated when the outline consent was approved for the Barton Farm development that this would happen. So it's not something that Cala have put the infrastructure for at the moment, but it will happen as and when the phase that it can connect to gets built. Phase 1A, I think we covered the footways network on that, what Viv did. We did share a couple of meetings ago a plan of that, but it might be more useful for Viv to show in more detail exactly what those routes look like and if further connections can be made. The Courtney Road footway cycleway, there's a couple of photographs there showing what Mr. Poulter mentioned about the wooden edges. There may well be areas of that where vehicles are using, we need to reinforce it somehow without damaging any of the routes, and that's a discussion I've had with Cala. But at the moment, we've been focusing on getting the entranceway sorted out, and I thank Mr. Poulter for his comments on that. It's been very helpful. I've also had comments from the cycle touring club as well. They've given some very helpful information as well. So hopefully in the next few days, I'll be able to give a revised specification of exactly what that area will look like and how it will function. I think I missed Phase 2A there. Sorry, yes, I did. So Phase 2A was approved on the 5th of February. It's 264 new dwellings, 39% of which are affordable in line with the Section 106 requirements. And there's a plan for the information of the forum members attached to the appendix. It went through a few redesigns, I'm sure Viv will acknowledge, to make sure the urban design elements were correct and the connectivity access were issues were to the satisfaction of the City Council officers. And I think we've come up with quite a good scheme. So that's all I have to say on that particular item, Chair. If there's anything that anyone has to ask, I think then Viv may have a couple of other updates as well.
Right, thank you, Chris. I don't see any hands. Councillor Porter has a question.
Sorry, thank you. The cycle footway to Courtney Road, and Mr. Poulter has had some really constructive comments about it, but one of the points was about the surface, and I wonder if I know that Mr. Hughes has been asking other cyclists their view of that, and I wonder if he'd like to make any comment about the surface. But also, the path is constructed to one side of the railway bridge and not constructed through the railway bridge and then starts again on the other side. I'm presuming this is the same problem as we've got with Network Rail further down, and if so, what progress is being made on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Porter. This is something I've mentioned to Cala's technical manager, but I'm afraid, have an update at the moment. I was hoping to have one before the meeting. Following my conversation with you, I will, of course, let you in the forum know as soon as I have an update on it.
Thank you, Chris. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands at the moment, but Viv, was there anything you wanted to add on this item?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, I suppose, draw people's forward attention to some future works which we're looking to take place on the site. And at the moment, the construction compound, I might just see if I can, if it's possible to share a screen. Might be easy to talk through. Can everyone see that, Chair?
Yes.
Brilliant. That's excellent. So this shows the wider phasing diagram. 1A under construction here. Perhaps if I just zoom in a little bit further, be a bit clearer. The current site compound for the construction of phase 1A sits in the top right hand corner, sorry, the bottom right hand corner of phase 2A. So it sits in this location here, so that we can continue building out all of phase 1A without the need to move it. Now, since we've had reserve matter consent for phase 2A, in the not too distant future, we need to be looking at an alternative location to move the site compound. Now, that is proposed to be going into the phase 3A site in this location here, so that we can build out all of phase 2A. Now, residents who use the footpath and the routes through the site will be well aware that there is an existing hedge line which sits from the public right of way and comes down in this location as I'm indicating on the plan. Now, the current to relocate the compounds and indeed deliver all the residential phases, that hedge was always due to be removed as part of the wider site delivery. Now, that's something we're looking to bring forward in the coming months, subject to any ecological considerations that we need to be aware of. So the intention is for us to move the site compound into this location and start to look at taking out the existing hedge so that we can put in our site compound and then rebuild, effectively move the north-south footpath connection beyond the site compound so that there will be a clean and clear route from any site works, site activity for pedestrians and cyclists to be able to use the nature reserve, come under the railway bridge, head north to the public right of way, and then come through the footpath we've talked about a length along the public right of way. So just wanted to make everyone aware that that works will be happening to that hedge and the footpaths there, and that it's something that we're speaking to the Winchester ecologists about and our own site ecologists to go there and make sure that we're not disturbing any habitat in the process. I think that was all I really wanted to share, so that was covered off satisfactorily before we commence any work, so that walkers and cyclists using that route acknowledge that the site that's coming forward in the coming months.
Well, Pip, if I might make a request at this point, as somebody who has to do quite a lot of ambassador work around the site and explaining to people I meet on a daily basis, whether we could have, as the Hampshire Wildlife Trust do on the other side, maybe some information boxes with leaflets in it around the site explaining to walkers, dog walkers and commuters how that route is going to change and where they'll be going. I think it would be really helpful to have a couple, perhaps maybe at the Andover Road point and somewhere near maybe under the footbridge, so that people can be forewarned of how that route is going to change, and to be reassured that that route will continue to be accessible, but moved over.
Yeah, I mean, we're intending to write to residents on this matter anyway.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. A diagram and an information leaflet would be,
or an information board, or whatever makes the greatest sense. And I think it'll start to engage people in that, to see that transformation.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is we'll show the route that is, as you say, the revised position of that route, and how the wider. I think this links back to a lot of the questions that were raised earlier about wider connectivity between the phases and to the wider neighbourhood through the public right of way, through Warehouse Lane, through to the nature reserve. So we'll pick all that up on one diagram that's clean, clear and concise. Thank you. It's a very good point, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Iredale with her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Just touching on what you've said, Chair, about informing local people about the change of route. We could put that on our parish website and perhaps in our newsletter, just to get the news out. Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Really
Thank you.
Thank you. Fine. So that's it. The last point I have is developer update. Viv, do you think you've covered all the points that you wanted to bring forward at this stage?
I have one final point just to add that I think we're looking at, now that we've got the consent at phase 2A, we're currently putting together a strategy for future implementation and future phasing, and some of that is likely to involve some wider thinking about the neighbourhood centre as well as residential parcels. So I'm hoping that there'll be some exciting and good news to report at the next forum, if not the one after that, about some of the end users we're talking about delivering the food store, public house, community centre and other retail uses in phase 2B coming forward. So yeah, just by way of that's all happening in the background, and look forward to sharing some news on that when we can.
That's very good news. I think we're really looking forward to the sort of bringing to life of those areas of the community. And as somebody involved with the school, I know that would be very pleased to hear that is moving ahead. Progress is being made there. I've got a hand up, but I cannot see whose hand that is. Matthew, can you see?
Yeah, it's Nicola Wells, Chair.
Okay, Nicola. Please.
Hi. Hello. Yeah, it's just a quick couple of quick questions really. One was about, in terms of publicising the routes. Obviously some of my parents and things I think might be affected by some of those routes that are going to change. So again, we can communicate that if you share that information with us. Yeah, and then obviously any updates that you can give us in terms of how quickly you think. Obviously, I'm quite interested in how quickly houses are going to be built and occupied, because it has quite a significant effect on us as the school and our growth, which I'd like to see happening a lot quicker. So it'd be useful to know what your timeframes are for the next phase.
Sure. I mean, essentially, the quick answer to that is it'll just be a rolling construction programme. So, I mean, we're at probably 300 occupations or so at phase 1, combined phase 1A and 1B. So we've got another 100 or so to occupy in phase 1A. But as you've seen on site, progress is going well at the moment. There'll be a point in time where we'll be going straight on to phase 2A and continuing to build out there, so that we're not left with any gaps in the market to sell at. So yeah, it'll be ongoing, and I think what we'd like to do is accelerate delivery. Like I said, start thinking about the neighbourhood centre, potentially some additional residential in that phase, together with wider reserve matters consents adjacent to phase 2A. So I think we're looking to speed up delivery, which will be good news for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Nicola. I've got questions from 3 people. I think the order I've got them in is Councillor Porter, Councillor Horrell and Councillor Scott. So Councillor Porter.
I think it's a very quick one. We had the a conversation about the village centre or the centre quite some years ago, and at that a conversation was done about included about ACE or adult education on the site. I wonder if there's any progress on that.
A quick answer to that, thank you, Councillor Porter, was that's not one of the mixed uses we've immediately started re-engaging with at this stage. I think we're quite keen to get an anchor in the neighbourhood centre and start to tie up a food store operator, because ultimately they'll deliver, likely to deliver the retail units that sit alongside the food store. So once we've got an anchor into contract with an anchor to take the food store, then I think we'll start looking at the other mixed uses around that, including the office, education use, children's nursery, and affordable extra care, which we need to deliver as part of that parcel as well. So yeah, we haven't moved those conversations on.
No, looking forward to those things anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Horrell.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, the extra care question was one that I was going to ask about, and indeed whether, given that time is passing and other elements come to the fore, as many contributors have said this evening, will there be any additional conversations about the centre? There were consultations before about aspirations, but will there be more dialogue with those already living on the development now, and also other interested parties, and where does the extra care scheme stand? And also for the academy, the concern that obviously schools rely on numbers and finances are driven by numbers. So if you don't have the correct number of children coming through, that curtails what our schools, whether it's here or anywhere else, can achieve. So understanding that speed of delivery of homes, and therefore hopefully new families moving in who will want to attend the academy, are really important. So there are some elements I think that are coming together here about the speed and the phasing that has implications on other institutions already established. So again, just to better understand that, they've been touched on, but we haven't really sort of nailed the next steps on some of those things. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question again.
Thank you. Viv, you have to...
I'll attempt to answer some of those. Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of, members will be aware that all the reserve matters applications across the site have been submitted, and those have been submitted in accordance with our obligations on the outline planning permission and the outline consent. So the extra care at the moment as submitted is for a 60-bed affordable extra care facility. That's our obligation. I know that the conversations I've had in the past with Hampshire and Winchester is that there is scope to potentially look to increase that number, but at the moment our outline consent is for 60, which is what has been submitted. The other mixed uses, again, have all been submitted in line with what our obligations are, such as the retail units, the food store, children's nursery and the community centre. I wouldn't anticipate, given that those are submitted with fairly tight red lines drawn around them as part of the application, I think any conversations going forward are unlikely to involve siting or position or location within the neighbourhood centre, but might perhaps concern more detailed elements such as the design and appearance of those buildings. I think we've had a number of workshops. Some of on the call today have attended those in the past about the location of where each of the mixed uses needs to go. I think we feel we've got them in the right place and that they work as a whole, as a place. So I think, yeah, ongoing as and when each of those reserve matters is moved forward, I think I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussions on appearance, look and feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Viv. I think I would again echo what Councillor Horrell said about consultation, even given as you say, a number of us were involved in discussions about that. But if I think about it, it was 4 or 5 years ago. Many of our residents weren't on site at that stage. Chris, maybe you'd like to say something about how we could involve.
Yeah, Chair, I think one of the items that Councillor Rutter, as chair of the forum, wanted to bring forward is a refresher on what the local centre will look like, and I'll speak to Viv about how best to present that and show how the ideas that were gathered all those years ago have actually been reflected in the designs that they've come up with. So again, I'll speak to Councillor Rutter about when she wants that to happen, and we'll bring that forward and refresh as a refresher for everyone that was involved and new residents and so on.
Excellent, thank you very much. Yes. Okay, I have Councillor Scott, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's in respect of support for our officer, Chris, to be honest. He must be a plate spinner and a juggler with all the stuff that's moving forward, which is on his lap. When we normally, as councillors, sit on policy groups or forums or meetings, it normally entails quite a senior officer to sit alongside Chris to interject sometimes, so it doesn't fall clearly on the officer's shoulders. So sometimes it feels like Chris is answering an awful lot and has got a lot of weight on his shoulders. That said, also, Chair, I'd like to know who the cabinet member that Chris would answer to and have support from the administration, because it seems as if a cabinet member is obviously leaving Chris to sort of take on an awful lot of frustrations from the residents, why this hasn't been done, why this delay here and all that sort of stuff. So who is the cabinet member that Chris is liaising with, and perhaps that cabinet member should be coming along to the forum as well?
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Chris, you want to? I mean, I could answer that, but
yeah, Chair, I don't physically have broad shoulders, but metaphorically I do have quite broad shoulders, Councillor Scott, and I'm well used to taking on
the Bampton Court. You do, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. That was a while ago. Yeah, so I work quite closely with Councillor Porter, who's come on the screen. We have, I don't know, probably weekly dialogue anyway about what's going on the site and how things are progressing. And in terms of officer support, Julie Pinnock, I believe, is on the call with us this evening, and I work closely with Julie as well. We'll be having a corporate director fairly soon as well, so I know I've worked with Lisa a bit in the past with North Whiteley, so I'm sure she'll be interested in the Barton Farm as well. So we'll try and get her as engaged as possible and take her around site to show her how things are progressing.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Because I do think sometimes, in fairness, I sat on the Waterlooville forum many years ago, just out an interested member of the cabinet planning committee, just to see how that forum sort of interject. And there was quite a lot of seniority there on the forum. It seems sometimes, and it's no criticism of Mrs. Pinnock, who's here tonight, that Chris is answering an awful lot, and there's a lot of things have been directed to him. Perhaps he should actually also, other officers should take a little bit of pressure off of him. And just seeing Councillor Porter on the screen now, I'm perplexed then, Chair, if Councillor Porter is the cabinet member, why Councillor Porter is raising an awful lot of questions tonight, putting the stress back on our officer. Because surely if you have an update as the cabinet member, you shouldn't be putting on that pressure on the officer on the forum tonight, because you should be knowing what's happening.
Well, I think I'll ask Councillor Porter to say something. I think one of the points we have here is that a number of the partners in the scheme who we had invited to this meeting have not been here this evening. And I think Chris has very courageously taken on mediating.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so those other parties, and I think we all recognise the effort that he's putting in to get them here, and Chris has expressed his disappointment that we haven't been able to speak to some of those teams on this occasion. So, but I do think we all recognise the work that Chris is putting in here. Councillor Porter, did you want to comment?
Yes, please. As Councillor Scott probably might know, I attend the 3 fora the one in West Waterlooville, the one at North Whiteley, and this one. And the requirements of each are very, very different at this point in time. And I also attend Headbourne Worthy Parish Council as a City Council ward member. So I hear those same frustrations expressed there as well. So one of the things is that Chris and I have worked very closely on a number of these issues, and we attend meetings together at the County Council. We've had conversations about updates on those, but mainly tonight we were trying to bring out some of the challenges that both he and I share, and the whole planning team share with Carla, and it was really good to hear some straight answers from Viv tonight. It's really helpful to have those, and I think that's the challenge really for all of us, to keep that communication going with the developer, because if we don't, it slows things up again, and we need to keep the pace up, because as Nicola Wells very clearly said, we need those houses occupied, and we need it being built out at a good rate, and we need the infrastructure built at a good rate too, and really only Carla can do this at this time. So it's a challenge. We've had a challenge, made a challenge back to the County Council about their S106 delivery, and we've made a challenge to Carla, and we've made a challenge to Vivid, and that's why I asked to mention the home group as well, because I think it's important that we start working with them to make sure that their homes are, the people that are living in them are living well in those homes as well.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Through you, Chair, please, if I may come in again. That's great, Councillor Porter, but that's really great. I'm just sort of very conscious of sitting on the Housing Bills and Committee, where you got Councillor Lerney, who is there to interject when officers need her to interject, and Councillor Ferguson interjects on the environment and all that sort of stuff. I just don't think that actually that the stuff that you were presenting today was more like a step back rather than actually with Chris and interjecting time with actually supporting the officer on this forum, because I just feel that, especially the early discussions when the residents were actually giving a sort of bit of a finger what's not going wrong, I just sitting back thinking I'm really not believing that Chris is really, from a city council point of view, no one was stepping in at that moment in time. It seemed as if the questions were actually adding more to the stress factor for Chris, and I'm sort of raising this as saying I think Chris needs more support on these forums, and actually perhaps you should need a step back if you're the cabinet member and to give Chris some support in answering the questions, not directing the questions to him. Thank you, Chair.
Scott, I can assure you that Chris gets, Mr. Hughes gets very good support from me and from his whole team.
Not tonight, you didn't.
Well, I think that Councillor Scott, how we run this meeting is something that Chris and I have discussed, and he's very happy with the way in which it runs. If you are not, then you've made your point clear. I do think perhaps it might be a little bit of politics scraping into this at this point in time.
Not at all.
But I also want to make sure that actually and I've put in request to speak several times in here because I wanted to make sure that Carla Holmes got their opportunity to respond to. There's only so much we can do without Carla Holmes, this really good cooperation. So, and that's what I hope. I'm really pleased to hear from Viv tonight. I think we've heard an element of wanting to be cooperative, and that's very helpful indeed.
Viv, do come back on this. Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I think I just wanted to. I think we're all acutely aware that the project and the delivery and the scheme as a whole is at a sort of fairly critical time at the moment in terms of critical mass of homes that are being occupied. Critical that we get the wider infrastructure in. Critical that we get these roads adopted. There's a lot of issues that we're all having to resolve and all having discussions on, and a lot of stakeholders interested. And I think I firmly believe that things will get smoother. We will hit our obligations. Ultimately, we're there to build houses, but we've got. I think Chair, you might have said that we've got to. This is about the place and the people as much as anything. We've got to get it right. We've got to get the infrastructure in, and Chris, certainly from our perspective, is if you like the glue that sort of connects stakeholders, members, Hampshire County Council, and Carla and the local residents, more importantly. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that I speaking on behalf of Carla, recognise the importance that Chris plays in delivery here, and we are at that critical point of delivery of the site, and long may we continue chatting and get these things done. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Viv. I thank you, Councillor Porter. Julie, was there anything you wanted to add on this as you're in the meeting?
I mean, thank you. No, I don't think so. I think, as you've all said, I am here to support Chris. He's got the answers, he's got the relationship, but I'm here to keep that strategic overview and make sure things are running smoothly and dip in if I need to. But, you know, I haven't needed to tonight because Chris has got the answers and he's liaised with the right people.
Thank you.
But I'm always here and happy to participate if needed.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. There is just one point I think that I wanted to pick up from Councillor Iredale around the polling station access, and I'm conscious that we haven't picked that up, but what I'd like to do is I will personally take that away, Councillor Iredale, with colleagues, look at what we can do to empower and enable the communities to take part in the upcoming council elections, because this is quite a busy year and it would be most unfortunate if people felt that they were disenfranchised by the situation. So we'll take that away and have a look at it with officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Welcome. I don't see any more hands up, so I think unless Matthew, there is any other business you feel we should be dealing with, I will call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.